Welcome, everyone. This is our final class that we're offering, that we've offered for disasters. It's being prepared. It's not if, but when. And so we're glad that you're with us today. As we stated before, this class was really kind of a spearhead from Acts of Mercy, which is a offshoot. It's a disaster preparedness committee team for the Antioch churches, and their vision mainly is to mobilize the church to engage, train, and prepare in order to offer practical help in times of disaster and to bring sustainable transformation to communities locally and around the world. And again, you being here is that first step of being prepared. We went through 4 classes already. We've touched on a lot of areas. We went from everything from home preparedness to what do you do if there's an earthquake, to drawing out a family plan if there's a emergency. We've touched on first aid skills in terms of choking and bleeding and all kinds of other things. So today is going to be kind of a wrap and kind of a synopsis on a lot of things. So we're glad you're here. And again, as usual, we are pleased to have Albert Hugo with us, who's been our faithful teacher all these classes. Albert, again, is a 26-year veteran with the fire department, serving in both Ventura County and currently in LA County. And he brings a wealth of knowledge to us in terms of really knowing how to prepare in these times of disasters as we're living as we could see all around us. Everywhere we turn, anywhere we turn, we see that there's something else happening all the time. So again, we're glad to have you all here. This class is really a precursor to helping you, really encourage you to maybe take the next step after this, which would be maybe to possibly get CERT trained. And so this is just a taste to whet your appetite, so to speak. But we really encourage you to take that next step because it's so important to get further trained. It doesn't end here. This is just kind of the beginning. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Albert.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm so glad to see you guys here, culminating our 5th class of the 4 previous ones that we've done. So this one's going to be different. I know the last couple I've done PowerPoints, and there was a lot of information that was given out to you. Again, like what Dennis has just stated, this is just really the beginning of the tip of the iceberg that we hope will light a fire for you to want to pursue further training with CERT, or maybe even more than that, EMT or other kind of training that you can serve your community and maybe even serve abroad. And what an incredible way to serve those, especially those that don't know the Lord. So welcome again. So this setup is going to be different. It's going to be completely interactive. I do have 2 videos, if we have time permitting, at the end, and there is going to be a raffle that we have some things that we can give out. So we have a smoke alarm. We do have an emergency triangle if you're driving and you have some kind of a mechanical situation, and we also have a fire extinguisher. So those will be at the end of the class. So those will be raffled out. And chances of you winning something are like almost 100% because we have a smaller group, but we understand that there's a lot of people committed to the clinics and other things. So there's opportunities for them to continue watching online this training. So that being said, is there anything, I know we posted a questionnaire, is there anything that here, or even if you weren't given that questionnaire, that you want clarification on, or you want me to elaborate more on, that we've covered or maybe didn't cover?
And feel free to unmute yourself to ask the question. We won't do it by chat form. So if you have a question for Albert, just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask the question.
We'll stay in gallery view.
So if that's not the case, so I drew up 2 scenarios, and this is total interactive. There's no right or wrong. This is just something that's going to cover a lot of the material, not everything. that we've gone upon, but these are real life situations that can occur. Or in this case, I drew upon two situations that have actually occurred. One was shared by Cheryl and a neighbor who had a vehicle go into their house, crash into it. So I'm just going to start. We want to make sure we can cover as much as we can, and there is time constraints. So, okay, this is the first scenario. You're at home. It's sometime in the late afternoon, so it's in the day, and you hear a loud crash coming from outside. You go outside to investigate, and you notice that your neighbor across the street, there's a car that's crashed into the house. My question to you is, what do you do?
Call 911.
Yeah, excellent. We want to get 911 rolling, absolutely. Whether you had the presence of mind to take your cell phone or you went out there, and people are going to congregate outside. They're going to be there. Point somebody, hey, can you get 911 right now? So remember, you guys, those that have been through all the classes, we've had the opportunity and been exposed to some training. You can be of help even in that instance before first responders are going to come. There's situations where they may be delayed. So yes, we want to call 911. One of the things that when we respond on calls, if we're the first arriving unit on a fire, on a some kind of an emergency situation, a car crash, we're going to give what's called a size up. So size up is you're painting the picture to the dispatch so that additional resources know what to expect. And they may even call for specialized resources that are trained on a higher level than your typical fire engine or engine company at the station. So some of the things that you want to think about, remember, those have been in the class, that my primary thing for you to always keep in mind, safety first and foremost. You're there to help, you're there to make the situation better, but your primary safety is of the utmost importance, because you want to become a person to help. You don't want to become another victim. Situational awareness, what's around you. You saw a car crash. There's potential cars driving by, not paying attention. You're crossing the road. You want to make sure you're safe. And the mantra and cert is that we want to do the greatest good for the greatest number. Okay, that being said, so you want to take into account electrical hazards. Did that car knock down some power lines? Are you smelling gas? Do you see arcing? Maybe not from electrical lines down, but arcing from inside the house. They just broke and breached the wall, so there could be some electrical wires that have been compromised. How many victims do you see? Do you see broken water mains? So as you approach the vehicle, did the airbags deploy? These are things that you might not think of initially, but these are the things that we do, and it's just something to put into your mindset, that when you're going in there to think, because if you're the one calling 911, you want to paint as much of that picture as you can so that the dispatcher can be keyed into, maybe you're going to need 3 ambulances because there's multiple victims there. It's not 1 or 2. Okay, so as you approach, you see the car into the structure, and
hey, Albert, can I interrupt? Why don't you ask Rachel to ask you what questions she's seeing? So what is she seeing? And then you can kind of describe the scene to her and let her this practice like sizing up a situation.
Okay, so as I painted that picture, Rachel, let's just say that's you, and you're walking in there. What are you seeing, and what kind of questions are bringing up into your mind? There's no right or wrong.
So Albert, your eyes. What do you want to know from the scene?
Yeah, so I painted you that picture. So what are the things that you think you might want to get more information? Say you're the dispatcher, for example.
Like what room the car drove into? Like, is it the kitchen or some other room or bathroom maybe?
Yeah, that's really good, because if it's the kitchen, there's potential for more gas compromise of the gas.
Smart girl.
Excellent. Good. Anything else you can think of?
Like how many people are there, or like who was in the car?
Very good.
Very
Perfect.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. The time of the day can dictate what you might expect to see there. If it's at night, most of us are going to be home. So there's a higher likelihood that you're going to have multiple victims. I told you that there's daylight. It's in the afternoon at some point. So most people are either home from work. And again, we're not painting the COVID situation where a lot of us are home. I didn't differentiate between that, but those are the kind of things you want to think about. Time of the day, the room or the area that the vehicle came into that structure with. Anybody else can think of anything else?
So Monica and Drew, my name is Cheryl. Hi, and we're just running a scenario right now. So Albert is our master teacher, and he's trying to give you a real life scenario that actually happened to my neighbor across the street when, boom, a crash happened and a car was half hanging out of the side of their house. Like truly, this is a real story. Like a car ran into the side of their house. So Albert's asking the question now, what do you do? And our first response was call 911. And now we're trying to describe the scene a little bit. So we're asking, what questions do you want to know? What's important? He was saying, be safe first, whatever you do, crossing the street, observing. He was giving you a little bit of some information background about what a size up is involved. Rachel says, well, what room did they crash into? Are there people hurt? How many are there? So now we're on with continued stuff. So that's kind of where we are in the scenario, just to catch you up.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'm cooking breakfast for my little girl. So I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, I just want to welcome these two women. They're my friends. And I said, hey, you might want to listen to this. And by the way, we've got a raffle going on. And so we just want to welcome the newcomers. So go ahead, babe.
Okay, so that's a really good answer, Rachel. And again, there's no right or wrong answers. It's just to get you thinking in the event something like this happens, or something that's not exactly this, but some of the things that you want to keep in mind, your safety, what you want to convey, what you're seeing, potential dangers. So now I'm just going to throw a little bit more information. As you walk up, you see a man outside of the driver's side. He's dazed and he's kind of walking around. So as you approach this man, this patient, this victim, what things should be running through your head? We talked about, let's just say the immediate dangers. There's no arcing. You don't smell gas at this moment, and you're walking to what could be potentially your first victim. What things should you be thinking about? How about Boone? What do you think?
The victim that's still in the car?
Yeah, he's outside. So that you see he's walking around, kind of appears like he's dazed, he's conscious, and you're approaching to him to possibly render medical attention. So what things are running through your mind as you're approaching him? You've addressed your safety, so you don't have any immediate safety concerns to yourself, but you're looking at potentially your first patient.
I will check to see if he's bleeding.
Okay.
And maybe I think I will approach him and say, how are you doing? Are you okay? Kind of check his alertness, and then while observe on the outside to see kind of just a quick glance to see if there's a blood stain over him, and maybe if he's able to comprehend, maybe situate him to maybe move away from the car a little bit more, just so that in case there's any gas leakage or spark, move him to a safer place.
Excellent. You touched on a lot of really good points, and that's really good. Remember, we talked about ABCs, your things that you're going to any potential medically person needing medical assistance. ABCs, your airway. you see the man, you talk to him, you identified him, he's responding. So he has what we call a patent airway. You know, he's not exhibiting at this point any signs of labored breathing. So he has a patent airway, he appears to be breathing, and he's answering appropriately. You asked him some questions. So you address that. Now, a thing that you want to look at is how much damage was done to the car. Is there an airbag deployed? You want to ask him if he was wearing his seatbelt. So let's just say, Jen, why would it be?
Monica has her hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, Monica. Can you tell me what it is that you want to ask?
Okay, then I'm unmuted. Well, this is, I don't mean to go on the dark side, but the guy could be drunk. You also want to kind of use your nose and like smell. That happened to me once. A drunk driver ran a red light. I didn't know he was drunk, but when he got near me, he reeked of alcohol. That's another thing you might want to report to the ambulance when they get there if he's under the influence. You know what I mean? Not,
Yeah.
you know, because that could happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as you get closer to them, you're gonna either smell it, or you might see some beer bottles, or the smell of alcohol in the car. But when there is no alcohol, no indications of intoxication or anything like that, that doesn't mean he's not impaired. He could be impaired medically, or he could have been smoking marijuana or something. So there's different kinds of impairment, or he could be impaired from the impact. So so basically what I'm trying to get at, what things should you be considering? You saw the airbag deployed. You want to see if he was wearing a seatbelt. You didn't see him inside the car, so you don't know if he was wearing a seatbelt. It's important because you want to establish if there's any kind of head, neck, or back injury. Because if there is, and there's indications of that, then you're going to have to proceed in a different way. So if you see indications of any of those types of injuries, you want to minimize movement. You want to try to immobilize that patient as much as you can. You don't have any medical equipment like a headboard, you know, or a stretcher. So those are things why I'm asking you that question. Now, as you get closer to him, you're going to see that there's bleeding, and it's on his right forearm. So Jen, I don't want to throw you under the bus, but just so, because we have so few participants at this point, but so why is it important to see if he's bleeding and how much, and what things would you be considering if you do note? We're going to say he's bleeding on his right forearm.
I mean, it could impact how he's doing, you know, overall. So I'd probably see if there's a way to like wrap it or like stop the bleeding.
Right, absolutely. So we covered over these past classes 3 killers. One of them being a compromised or a blocked airway. The second being bleeding. So yes, absolutely. You want to make sure you're addressing the first thing. You address the airway. He has a patent airway. It doesn't appear to be compromised. So you see bleeding. So when you see bleeding, you want to see what kind of bleeding. Remember, we talked about 3 types of bleeding: arterial, venous, and capillary. So can somebody tell me what an arterial bleed is, if you can remember? Okay, so of the 3 bleeds, that's the most concerning. An arterial is a bright red spurting out. That's when the heart is constricting, it's oxygenated, so it looks brighter red, and it's going to be a bigger problem because it's harder to control. When there's venous bleeding, it's not as much, it's kind of oozing, it's a little slower, and it's not under pressure. It is darker red because it's not as oxygenated as the arterial bleed. And a capillary bleed is kind of like a rug burn. It's much slower. Capillaries are very small vessels in the body. So your bleeding from a capillary bleed is not going to be as concerning. All bleedings are concerning, but that's the difference. Now, in this case, this one is coming out under pressure, it looks bright red. So that's telling you it's an arterial bleed, right? So, you know, how we talked about what we do when we're addressing bleeding, how we control it. So do you guys remember? What do we do first? So boom, right away. At that point, hopefully you have some kind of sterile dressing or something. But even if not, you know, a tablecloth or something, you're gonna apply direct pressure. Remember, So your first thing is to apply direct pressure. What's the second thing we can do if that's not stopping the bleeding?
You could elevate the wound.
Excellent, excellent, Rachel. So your next step is going to be elevating of that bleeding site. Along with direct pressure, you're going to elevate it. So like, for example, we just lifted his right arm. So if that's slowing the bleeding down, but it's not stopping it, can anybody think of what's a third option we can do? So
tourniquet.
Yeah.
You can apply a tourniquet.
Yes, that's an option, but it's remember the tourniquet is the last course of option that we want to take. It might be the right course, but in this case, we want to make sure we go through all three. Remember, direct pressure, elevation, and remember we talked about specific points that we call pressure points.
On the upper thigh and then just above the elbow and behind the knee.
Right. So we talked about this being a right forearm, right, bleeding. So you direct pressure, you elevate it, you can do pressure point. And you can go over those pressure points. We covered, I think it was the second class or the third, I forget. But yes, so you're going to try that. Okay, it slowed it down, but it's not stopping everything. So now the right course of action is we're going to apply a tourniquet. Excellent, Rachel. So what kind of things would you be thinking about when you're applying a tourniquet? Can anybody tell me?
You have to record the time of application so you can tell the ambulance when they get there.
Excellent.
Excellent.
Excellent. It's important because when that patient goes to the emergency room, the attending physician is going to want to know when that was applied. Excellent. Time, especially when it's a delayed response to the emergency room. Yes. Anything anybody else can think of? Remember, it's important. There's a few other things, but that's definitely one of the ones that you want to think about. So just remember, when we're applying a tourniquet, this is the last resort. Like Rachel said, it's important to do that. We want to apply it as close to the wound as possible, but we don't apply it directly on the wound. But the other thing to keep in mind, we also don't want to apply a tourniquet over any joints. So if it happened that the bleed was sort of around the elbow, we want to apply it above that. So it was on the forearm, we're going to apply it a little above that, and we're going to tighten it. And yeah, there can be painful. If you have a tourniquet that you purchased, you have to maybe make a makeshift tourniquet. Just remember the things you don't want to use: rope, any wire or string, because that can cause more damage. You could tear a t-shirt. You can use a drapes and you tear that up. So if you need to do a makeshift tourniquet, you want to make sure it's not anything like a wire, rope, or string or anything like that, because that can actually be more damaging. So you applied that tourniquet. You want to make sure that it stops the bleed. You're looking, it really, really slowed it down. So, but it didn't stop it. What can we do? We just applied a first tourniquet. Can we apply a second tourniquet? Yes. So we can apply a second tourniquet above that one. And that one's also good. Like Rachel mentioned, you're going to put a date and time. So the first one maybe was applied 10 minutes. It's helping, but it's not completely stopping the bleed. You can apply a secondary tourniquet. So we're going to do that. And it'll be the same thing, marking it right above that first one, just remembering that we're not going to put it over any joints. We're not putting it directly over the wound. Another thing to think about too is that if that person is wearing any jewelry, he or she, in this case, it's a gentleman, he has a watch, he has some jewelry, take it off. If you can think about it, put it in his pocket, because sometimes some people later will, hey, that was an expensive ring. We always try to keep things in with the same person there. So if there's anything like that, you want to make sure you take it off, anything that might be constricting. Okay, so we applied the tourniquet, it stopped the bleed, and we addressed that. Now all of a sudden you're smelling gas, and it smells like there was a broken gas line. So you have somebody there, you're trained, insert, and ambulances and the first responders are slightly delayed, what can you do to address the smell of gas? Okay, so
Wonder Wrench.
you guys live across the street. It's probably a neighborhood. The house might not look the same, but it was probably constructed by the same contractor, or most likely. Then you can have an idea. Or if there's the homeowners are there, you can ask them where the gas meter is. Do they know how to shut it off? So you want to make sure that you're addressing that potential situation. Now, we don't want you guys to get tunnel vision. You saw this man, he's in obvious need of medical attention. The medical first responders aren't there. However, if the situation was different, you're approaching, you smell gas first. Your first priority, remember, safety first and foremost for yourself and everybody else. So maybe your first priority would be to address the smell of gas, even though that person needs medical attention right away. It nothing worse than you trying to help them and something sparks that gas, and now that house explodes. So yeah, so you want to address that. You know how to shut the gas off. You're going to go there. Remember that when I was showing you the video, that the gas, the feeder line comes from the ground, and there's a valve there. When the valve runs in alignment with that plumbing, that means your gas meter is open. If you turn it and now it's bisecting, it's basically making a T, you shut it off. If you don't remember or you didn't have an opportunity to see that, I recommend that you go over those videos and it will show you there. And hopefully you will be one of those that attend the CERT training. That's going to be hopefully coming up soon. And then you could actually do it. But yes, you want to make sure you address that situation. And again, you're going to have to prioritize depending on what you encountered and what you saw. So this gentleman is there, you address the thing, and then now you turn around and a lamp was knocked over and it fell into a waste can and you start smelling smoke. So now what? And you see, whoa, there's an extinguisher 10 feet away from me. So what would you do? Do you guys remember how to use an extinguisher?
What's the mnemonic?
You guys remember the mnemonic?
Pass.
Yeah, you remember what
Pull the pin, aim the nozzle, squeeze the levers, sweep from side to side.
Excellent.
Yay.
Excellent. Yay.
Job,
Kudos.
Rachel.
So yeah, a good way to remember is pass. Now, the recommended extinguishers, which the one that we're going to raffle is actually one of those, the multi-purpose. Do you guys remember the types of fires, the A, B, C, and D fires? So remember, A stands for ordinary combustibles. So be like wood, paper, drapery, things like that. So B would be combustible and flammable gases or liquids. It could be gasoline, it could be cooking oil and stuff like that. A C would be an electrical fire. So what's an example of a C fire that you can think of, Boone? Some electrical equipment. So just remember, anything that you plug in, it could be your computer, it could be your printer, it could be your television set. So because it's got electrical current running through it, and we didn't talk about possibly shutting off the electricity. So your computer is a type C fire because it's got electrical current. If it has no current, it reverts to an A fire because it's made out of plastic and some other components that make it an ordinary combustible. So that's an A fire. And a D fire would be, saturated oils that you use for cooking. And those require a specialized extinguisher, which is called a D extinguisher. You will see those in restaurants, and they're required to have as protective systems over what we call hood systems. And they're over the cooking areas that in case they have some kind of an oil fire inside the kitchen, it has a special agent that is special for these types of fluids that burn hotter and faster. And an ordinary extinguisher would not. We wouldn't want to put water into a flammable liquids, a B, or into a D size fire. So this is excellent. So like Rachel said, we're going to use the past mnemonic, and we're going to proceed that way. So this scenario actually did happen, and now I did throw a lot of curveballs to get you thinking. And basically, it's throwing some things that you might encounter or not, but it just want you to think. You're there to make the situation better, especially if you had this training. I think most of us, even if we didn't have this training, we're going to do something to help that individual. But this training is going to make you aware of the potential situation and pitfalls that you yourself might, be encountering. Because like I said, you want to make the situation better. You're there to become a positive force of help. You don't want to possibly become another victim that when eventually the first responders show up, that they need to render assistance to.
Yeah, and I just want to commend you, Rachel. I mean, as young as you are, you could very well be that one person, and all the adults have to step back because they can see that, wow, this young girl, she knows what she's doing. So, it's not a matter of age, it's a matter of education, and you're really doing such a great job absorbing all of this. So we only have about 10 minutes. So I'm going to start, showing you the videos that Albert prepared about active shooters.
Okay, yeah. So this is unfortunately the things that we now have to deal with. It could happen anywhere. It could be in your workplace. You could be where you're at school, or it could be you in an area. You went to the supermarket or the grocery store. So we're going to play this video, and if we do have time, I'm not sure we do. There's a second one, but just want you guys to be aware of something that hopefully you don't have to ever experience.
Yeah, so give me a moment. I actually prepared a Google Classroom, and this is the fastest way I know to get to my Google Classroom. So it'll just take me a few seconds. All right, here we go. So the first one is called Surviving an Active Shooter. And let me make it bigger.
A morning that began like any other turned tragic today when an employee opened fire on his supervisor and fellow coworkers.
Students, parents, teachers are asking why today, after a bloody rampage plunged this campus into tragedy.
Details are just coming in, but we're being told that a heavily armed gunman opened fire this evening at the mall food court behind me. There's no official word on any casualties yet, but one eyewitness reported seeing at least 6 people shot.
Active shooter, a gunman or gunmen killing or attempting to kill people in a confined, populated area.
You gotta get some sleep. You're looking like a vampire.
You sleep. You ain't got no babies at home keeping you up.
What the hell? Sim again.
We've tried. I'm sorry. We're gonna have to let you go.
Active shooter killings are a tragic, unpredictable reality, and one that's becoming more common.
Since 2006, the U.S. has averaged an active shooter event with 4 or more deaths every 2.9 months.
Even though the number of active shooter events has been increasing, your odds of being involved in one are still very slim. But just like fire drills and earthquake preparedness, making a plan in advance can make all the difference.
Yeah, but lizards live in tanks. I mean, it's probably fine.
If you do find yourself in the middle of a senseless attack, the why doesn't matter.
Hey, buddy.
Hang on, something's happening.
What matters is surviving.
On average, 20 mass shootings take place in the US every year.
Killers usually choose their victims at random. They look for easy targets. So the harder you are to see or to hit, the safer you are. When an attack starts, if you can find a way out of the location, do so.
Get out.
If you stay calm and think clearly, even in the middle of a life and death event, you improve your chances of making it out. Visualize your movements in advance.
What are we gonna do?
Look at me, look at me. I can get us out. Stay behind me. Stay here.
Use cover, something that will stop a bullet, and concealment, something that at least keeps you out of sight.
Attention South LA units, code 3 response needed regarding a 245 DSV 417. To be at the town center shopping mall. Suspects wearing a face mask, possible body armor.
Use any available means to get out, including emergency exits or windows. Most restaurants and retail locations will also have exits in the back, through kitchens or stock rooms. Even in the best cases, police are minutes, not seconds away. You must take action to protect yourself.
Okay, everybody stay calm. It's probably just a drill.
No, go back, go back.
Oh my God, come here.
If you can help others without putting yourself in unnecessary danger,
It's gonna be okay.
do
It's gonna
so.
be okay. What's your name?
Lori.
Lori? It's gonna be okay.
If you can't move safely to an exit, get to a room or a confined area you can lock down. Then secure the location.
Secure your location.
Oh my God.
There's somebody shooting.
Everybody stay calm. Remember how we train. Everybody get in this corner, away from the windows. Get the emergency bag from my desk. Help her.
Drywall won't stop a bullet, but there are steps to take to stay safe. Lock or barricade the doors, turn off the lights, move away from any windows, and silence your cell phone.
The other door doesn't lock. Move desks or anything, just block it.
A modern emergency bag can include a first aid kit, gloves, emergency plans for the building, and casualty cards to alert first responders to any wounded victims.
Most active shooter situations are over in 10 to 15 minutes.
Attention Lakeway units, code 3 is needed, red 245 GSV 417. It's going to be at Alexandria College. Multiple victims down.
Law enforcement's first responsibility when entering an active shooter situation is to stop the suspect, not to render aid to the victims. Medical teams will enter the scene as soon as the suspect is no longer a threat or is confirmed in another location. Silence any cell phones and remain quiet. Do not alert the shooter to your presence.
Sheriff's Department, is there anyone inside?
Red card.
Just hang tight. We'll be back to get you.
Defend yourself.
If you cannot escape the location and you can't shelter in place, you may have to defend yourself as a last resort. Almost anything can be turned into an improvised weapon. Look for something that can disrupt the shooter's ability to see, breathe, or control their weapon. When law enforcement arrives, they are going to be in a heightened state of readiness and awareness, looking for any aggressive movements. So keep your hands visible and follow any commands you are given.
He's a shooter. What happened? What happened?
Oh, it's just a shooter. I just saw one shooter.
Especially in developing situations, engaging law enforcement, running toward them, reaching for them, even to thank them, could put people at risk.
Surviving an active shooter.
Anybody injured? Let's go front.
For more information,
Thank you. Seriously.
visit activeshooter.lasd.org.
Okay, guys, that's a bit graphic, but that is unfortunately a reality that is part of the society that we live in.
You froze, Albert. Okay, the Hugos have temporarily frozen. Do you guys have any questions on the active shooter video? It broke it down and exemplified it into the run, the hide. There you go. You're back. Oh, you froze again. So run, hide, and fight. Those are the three main categories that I broke it down into. If you've never heard that before, run away as fast as you can. If you're going to be hiding, you're going to be barricading, turning off your cell phones, making yourself as invisible as possible. I've never seen the red card come out of that bag before, so that's a great thing to alert law enforcement agencies that you're sheltering in the place. And then, you know, ultimately, if you have to fight, you fight. In medical situations, it's really interesting. Rarely do they run around and shoot patients. They shoot staff. They don't shoot patients. So I know nurses are trying to protect their patients, but we always tell our staff, do what you can for your patients. But if they're on a ventilator, if you can't move them, they'll actually be safer than you by far. So you need to, as the ambulatory person, need to get out of this situation as much as possible. Albert, you're back.
Yeah, sorry about that, a little technical. So Cheryl covered a lot of that stuff. Just remember, these law enforcement are under extreme pressure at that moment. You don't want to thank them, hug them, or anything. Comply, 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 hands up. If you can, I always situate myself when I go somewhere to eat, facing the entryway. Look where your exits are, not because we don't want to make you afraid to live your life, but the things that you can employ, like, hey, where are the exits? Which way did I come in? Most people are going to want to exit the way they came in, when they're an exit might be right behind them. If you're wearing a bright colored purple sweatshirt or yellow backpack and that happens, leave it. If you can take that sweatshirt off, leave it, because the more colorful and visible you are a target.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to show you the second video. It's also really good. Maybe after, we're gonna have time later after 11:30. We're gonna stick around. If you want to see the second video or have more questions, you're free to do that. But we want to be sensitive to everyone's time. We promise to get you out of here at 11:30. So I'm going to now turn it over to Cheryl. She's got some announcements. and also the raffle. So go for it, Cheryl.
Okay, all right. So this was really a production of not if, but when. And this is one of the epicenter offerings that we have for you in conjunction with the entire Antioch Church, where we think that we as believers play a crucial role in these times, in not only bringing the word and the gospel to people's souls, but also in times of needs, bringing very tangible help with an additional just backdrop of the gospel salvation in both hands and feet and soul and spirit. So we want to be available to our communities as much as possible, because we know that Jesus is totally the answer, but Jesus also fed the poor. Jesus was also very present in times of need, and we want to be there. And unfortunately, in the past instances, like in Hurricane Katrina and things like that, when the faith communities have rallied around big responses, lots of times they were in the way of organized governmental responses like FEMA and stuff like that, because we didn't know how to interface them well. Well, now we have things like CERT, the Community Emergency Response Teams, and we can interface our governmental agencies in the correct way that they will understand, with language that they understand. And at the same time, it still allows us the opportunity to be Jesus's light and to be hands and feet in real life situations in real active time. And that's what we want to do. We want to make our faith as relevant and as active as possible. So this is sort of a precursor to for all of us to be involved in CERT training. But for those of you who actually have gone through at least one or more of these video sessions, we want to make a special invitation when Epicenter does involve their CERT training, and we're trying to get it on the boards for this year, given COVID and the shutdowns. CERT is a very hands-on, active, in-person type of training. And we are so thankful to have, Captain Hugo available to us and to put together a CERT training that will be just totally, qualified by government agencies that will make us be really hands and feet and also governmentally interfacing well with our current contemporary community. So we want to be there. We want to offer that. This is a formal training. You need to be there in person. Everything from fire extinguishers to cribbing. If you don't know what cribbing is, stay tuned, to going around and understanding what those little weird old signs are for chemicals and stuff that you see on the side of the trucks, knowing how many victims are, to signing off buildings, even being a watch patrol where you go around after an earthquake and you start marking on buildings and noticing what's available. So just various things. So the CERT training is just really, really going to be cool. So stay tuned to it. We're not sure exactly when we're going to offer it in 2021. That's our goal, to have it in 2021. If you've been a part of this series, the not if, but when, then definitely you will be eligible for it. For those in the rest of the church, these videos of the if, when series will be available so that they can also be eligible. And we want to have as many in Jesus come about and have this training so that we can be real active community participants for our time. Okay, any last comments from people? We wanted just to know that this is an ongoing commitment by the Antioch Church System and Epicenter Church in particular, that we want our members trained, ready to do God's will at any time. And you don't have to be overseas in order to be just the beacon of light in times of tragedy. We certainly want to be prepared here, but we also think preparedness here prepares us for if we are overseas. So it is just hand in hand. We just want to be God's light in these last times that we have. So anything?
No, I'm good. I just thank you all for participating. It's great to see you all, and hopefully took away a lot of good stuff. And I really encourage you to review the videos. It's so much good information. It's almost like drinking from a fire hose, all the information you're getting. So I would definitely review those.
And speaking of drinking from the fire hose, we want to especially thank the Hugos. You have no idea. This has been blood, sweat, and tears. If you could just hear the applause, and Peel. We are so grateful for you guys to bringing this to us. I mean, this is really top-notch information that you have brought to just the community church, and we are so blessed. And this is going to start a wave and a movement that we are going to be prepared God's people. So thank you so much. We bless you. We know that you're going to go on missions this summer to the Philippines, and we just bless you, bless you, bless you. Thank you for sharing your lives with us, and may our lives save other lives too.
Yes.
Absolutely. we want to thank everyone for helping out. There was a lot of people that made this happen. Mary, who's in Barbados right now serving, and Evelyn, obviously, and
Also serving.
Yeah,
in the vaccine clinics. So we're hoping that just a little snippet that it gets you to want to participate more. But even if you're not called to become even if you take CERT to become an established member with Epicenter or some other established team, just having this in the event you're in the grocery store, something happens, you never know. You can help. And especially if it's somebody that doesn't know the Lord, what a way to help somebody in their immediate need. And it might just be the catalyst to propelling them to save them and be, be a follower of the Lord.